Jackson on the drive, kicks it out for man. Man, three-pointer, bang! Oh, what a man!
Magic down the middle, just what I thought. A hook shot at 12, good!
Here's Michael at the foul line, a shot on Elo, good! The Bulls win! They win!
Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ,
Going up over Bell, ball away. Yes! Yes! At the buzzer, he does it! Was there ever a doubt?
A Smith screen, Posey will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
It's a physical game.
Oh, real fun! A monster jam by Blake Griffin!
69 season.
Here we
Earl
go.
Monroe and Gus Johnson and Wes Unseld, they're all on the All-Star team. Earl's on the All-Star team, but Clyde doesn't make it that year because, as you said, he didn't really get his shot till that trade, and it really took off for him. The Bullets get the #1 seed. So the Celtics for the first time, and the Sixers, obviously Wilt just got traded. So the Sixers and the Celtics, well, the Sixers are a little bit worse, but they're the 2nd seed. The Celtics barely make the playoffs. The Baltimore Bullets get the #1 seed with their MVP rookie, Wes Unseld, and then, of course, their big three, Kevin Lawfrey, who we haven't even mentioned, is the 5th guy on this team, starter, 22 points a game this season. And so they play the Knicks in round 1, but the reason why I don't want to spend too much time on this series is because Gus Johnson got hurt. He missed the whole series, and the Knicks swept them, wiped them off the floor. Any memories of this series?
I mean, yeah, my memories of this series was that you know, I think everybody knew that without Gus Johnson, it was going to be, you know, it wasn't going to be the series that everybody thought it would. He was that important a player, and his battles with Dave DeBusschere.
Oh, my God. I just looked at Dave DeBusschere's stats for the series. I'm going to let you finish, but oh, my God.
Well, I did too today when we were going to do this, and he just went nuts because they didn't have anybody to play him, and he just dominated. He just dominated. But the Gus Johnson-Dave DeBusschere matchup was probably the most physical, nasty, not nasty in a bad way, but I mean, these guys got after it, man.
They got at it, man.
It was unbelievable. Both 6'6", 230, 6'7", super stud athletes, super strong, neither give an inch, and they just got after it, man. I mean, it was insane. So when he didn't play, it really took a lot of shine off the series, and the Knicks took him out. I mean, they really, because Earl was kind of on his own, and he started doing all his one-on-one stuff. And you're not going to do that against a team like the Knicks.
No,
and the Knicks
no way.
they took them. So they swept them, and the Knicks. It was pretty easy.
Go on to lose in the conference finals to the Celtics. Oh,
now, hang on one second.
My bad.
If Frazier doesn't get hurt, and mess up his groin, they beat the Celtics.
You're confident about that?
I am completely confident about that. There was the same team that rolled it the next year. They were ready. They were there. And I think they beat the Celtics. I really do. And Bill Russell has alluded to that. I read something recently, a book that goes back to that year. And he goes, look, injuries are part of the game. He goes, we've had guys hurt. We had guys hurt that series. He said, but Frazier, the way he was playing, had he played, he said it might have been a different series. And if Russell says that,
it might have been a different series.
Yeah.
Well, but what he meant was we lose. I mean, we might have lost. A different series means there's only one difference: you either win or lose.
For sure.
It's win or lose. And the Knicks played them really, really tough. And Clyde had some huge games. Anyway, so that's from a Knicks fan perspective. Maybe they weren't ready. I think they were ready. They were younger, faster, deeper. They didn't have a bench, but anyway, so they lost to the Celtics, and then they really wanted it the next year.
Yeah. So that Bullet series, just for reference, Frazier averaged 20.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 13 assists. Dave DeBusschere, 21 points and 17.5 rebounds, which is absurd for the series.
No Gus Johnson.
Nobody boxing. Yeah.
And then Willis Reed, 28 points, 15 rebounds on 51% shooting against the MVP. So pretty commanding. But as we said, they lost to the Celtics. Celtics would go on to win the championship and get Russell, send him off into the sunset a winner. But then the 70 season, I've already done a bunch of content on the 70 Knicks. What an iconic team. You finally had DeBusschere from the start of the season. Just was an iconic season for New York. The Bullets were still very good, though. For whatever reason, though, Wes Unseld and Pearl didn't make the All-Star team that year, but Gus did. That was really weird to me that Tom Van Arsdale made it over Pearl. I don't think he was considered better at that time, was he?
No, I think Pearl was hurt a little bit that year. I think that was injuries.
Okay.
I'd have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure he was injured on and off. But I'm not sure about that. I think so. I mean, he was clearly a better player than Tom Van Arsdale. It's not even worth discussing.
So they met again, same seeding, but flipped. The Knicks are now the 1 seed, and the Bullets are the 3rd seed. But Gus is healthy, and they take the series all the way to 7 games. I guess I'll go to Doc here. Any memory of this series? Knicks come out victorious in Game 7, but this one was a battle.
This was a battle.
It was for me. It was that Game 7, the block. I mean, Unseld comes out and makes the block.
No, I think you're going 1 year too early. I mean,
where were you?
1970. So Knicks, this is a special New York season. This is the second round, semifinals. I'm sorry.
Okay, you can remember you in 70.
Yeah, you can still talk about this even though you lost.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid it. Right.
I know you are.
70 was the fact that it went 7 games and most of them were competitive.
Yep.
The things that stood out for me are when it went into overtime. I think that was in Game 1. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason.
Yes, it did.
Mad Dog Carter jumped like he was David Thompson and pinned one to the glass, I think on Barnett. And they did not call. Everybody's going goaltending. You're in the guard, it's goaltending, and Manny Rudolph says nope. And the game goes on. The other thing that stood out for me was, I believe it was Game 3. Game 3, if I'm right. It was in the Garden though, and the Bullets won in the Garden. I think they were alternating.
They were down 2-0 in the series at that time.
Yeah,
correct.
And Unseld went berserk. Unseld, I think he got maybe 20 points or something.
Oh my God,
like that.
I'm looking at the stats right now. I have it on my notes.
34 boards.
23 and 34.
Yes,
24. And now remember, that's against Willis Reed and Dave DeBush.
Unreal.
And out-rebounded the whole Knicks squad. So those are the 2 big things that stand out for me in that series that I never forgotten.
So I guess I'll flip it to my bad, Fabian, go for it.
No, I just wanted to ask, because going back to what you guys were saying, the 5 starters were primarily playing back then. The bench really didn't play still, or the Knicks kind of introduced the whole team concept, like the way they revolutionized team ball 1 through 8. Now you have Unseld grabbing 34 rebounds. I don't think that happens today. And does that have to do with the fact that he had to play that many minutes in the playoffs?
He played 41 minutes in that game.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to play pretty much the whole game there.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a little different too. You got to remember, there's no 3-pointer, so you don't get a lot of long rebounds.
Yeah,
I think it's really important to know.
There's a lot of shots being put up back then too. The pace is so fast.
Oh yeah,
a ton of shots, but not a lot of long rebounds. And so most of the rebounds are around the basket, and centers guarded the other center, so they rarely ventured out too far. You didn't have a lot of double teams. They weren't going out on the court to double anybody with the big man. So they're really in the paint, most of the time. And so you're in a lot more position to get a lot more rebounds at that time.
Similar to the most underrated center of all time. He escaped my mind right now. The Houston Rockets. He went to the
Moses Malone.
Moses Malone. That's how he got his rebounds as well. Like the little short
offensive glass.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, here's another one that's interesting. Yeah. The thing that I remember about this series, and I went back and looked at it, and it proved to be true. This was a big rivalry, and these guys were pros. And if you got embarrassed in one game, guys would come back.
Oh, yeah.
Turn it up. And so I looked this up because I remember as a kid when Unseld did that, and it was in the Garden. And
I was going to go. Thanks for the segue. I was going to go there next.
Yes, sir.
Insane stat line right here.
Right. We thought we had the series, right? We thought we're up 2-0. We're at home. It's over. Now, I was a kid. I didn't realize it's not over. And sure enough, Unseld did his thing. They then won the next game. Earl the Pearl went off in Game 4.
34 points. Yeah.
And so now it's 2-2, and we're back at the Garden. And Willis Reed, who had been embarrassed by what Unseld did in the Garden, and is about as proud a man as has ever played basketball, goes 36 and 36.
Yes, he went berserk.
Yeah, on 14 for 26 shooting in 45 minutes. I'm looking at it right now.
You got 34 rebounds in my house. I got 36.
Yep, 36 and 36.
Could you imagine if we had film of this, Fabian? Could you imagine?
That sound what? That sounds like somebody
video game. That's video game.
Yeah, if you had twins.
Against Wes Unseld.
Yeah. Now I look.
So you said you didn't say 25 minutes.
No, 45 minutes. Knicks out rebound Bullets 87-50 to win 101-80 and take a 3-2 lead. I wrote this down.
Up and, the Knicks were really, they were known as a great defensive team. They played team defense, and I looked it up. I didn't know the Bullets shot 24% for the game.
Wow.
They had guys go like 2 for 12, I think Gus Johnson was 1 for 14. I mean, it was one of those games where you just can't hit anything. And Willis was on a mission. He had been embarrassed, and there was just no way. And so 36-36. As a kid, statistics were not that important then. They didn't trumpet them like they did now. You looked at it and you moved on. But that caught everybody's eye. That was like,
really?
Okay.
It should.
Even that stat line will change. It was
Yeah, I mean, that one did. But I'm just saying in general, like they didn't talk about Clyde had a bunch of triple doubles. They didn't even have that term then.
Yeah.
So you didn't even, you literally didn't know because the box score, the way they wrote it, you wouldn't even see it. So guys were getting triple doubles. You didn't even know about it because they didn't think about that then. They weren't like, it's just like, oh, he played a great game. He had a lot of assists. He scored a lot of points. And then you look back, you're like, oh, 26, 11, and 17. Okay, triple double. And I looked it up and he had quite a few of them. So to me, that series was a real, you get embarrassed, you're going to come back. And then Gus Johnson did it in game 6.
Sure
Busher
did.
had gotten the better of him, and Gus Johnson in Baltimore said the series is not over.
31 points, 14 rebounds.
Right. So, guys were stepping up and doing what they needed to do. That series, I just remember going back and forth like that after that first 2 games. It was like, uh-oh. And then luckily we had game 7 at home. So
one thing I realized too is I don't know if it was Willis that said this. I think it was Willis actually in the book that I read that he wrote co-wrote.
This one.
He said no, not that one. It was the one with Pepe. it was Willis Reed's own book. And he's saying that he felt that after they beat the Bullets because they matched up perfectly. I mean, we talked about it. Monroe, Frazier, Marin, Bradley, Reed, Unseld, Johnson, DeBusschere, and Lawfrey, Barnett. And he said that once they felt like they beat the Bullets, they knew they were going to beat Milwaukee in the conference finals.
And and Reed matched up so well against Kareem.
He did. He did
because he was so physical. He was so much stronger than young Kareem, who was very thin, and he had that jumper.
Yeah.
And it was just styles make fights, and this was a style thing. He was the perfect matchup for Kareem at the time. Yeah. And so I think they were very confident against young Kareem. And he was young Kareem. So that was his rookie year. And we were lucky to get his rookie year because it got ugly after that.
Yeah. In game 7, you guys beat the Bullets pretty handedly, wire to wire, beat them by 13. And then obviously went on to win the championship. As you guys saw in Time Machine episode 3, I got game 7, Knicks Lakers. Willis Reed, heroics, Clyde Frazier, heroics in game 7.
That's
and then game. Coming to the next season, the final one for this episode, 71. Knicks are riding on a high. Clyde's confidence is through the roof.
I don't need to talk. I'm out. I'm done.
I already gave him a snippet.
I did.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Doc.
No, I was gonna ask Doc because all these guys. So in 71, they don't have the full All-Star game on YouTube, but Clyde, Willis, Unseld, Monroe, these guys were all All-Stars again. Gus as well. But for whatever reason. So the Knicks finished number one seed, but the Bullets were only 42-40, which was weird. But I think you could, at least for me doing this timeline, I think they're the second best team in the East, just off their talent, what they've done the last couple of years. Because I don't buy that Boston, Atlanta, or who was the team that finished above them this year was Philadelphia with Billy C in them. I don't think they're better than the Bullets.
No, they weren't. They weren't. I think injuries played on a lot.
Yeah, here we go. Gus Johnson missed 16 games, and in those 16 games, they were 5-11 without him. So that's 37-29 with Gus, and then they missed Unseld for 8 games. They were 2-6 without him, and 40-34 with him. So just a couple of injuries probably caused it, but they finished 42-40 and met the Knicks for part 3 in the conference finals. And finally in game 7 in New York, they get over the hump all season long, guys. And this is the season I'm doing, and I'm talking about it. If you guys, by the time this is released, you'll have watched Time Machine episode 5 between the Knicks and Bucks. I fully thought the Knicks and the Bucks were going to play in the finals. Was that the perception at the time?
Completely.
Because the Bucks got moved to the
Absolutely.
east. Bucks got moved to the west.
It went west. Yeah.
Yes.
This is 100%. I mean, it was a foregone conclusion.
Wow. So what went? So I want to hear from Doc's side first. What went so right that you got over the hump? In
The
games
block shot
on the road, and wasn't that a series where everybody won the home games, or was it not?
You know what? They switched to it. I think people didn't know. It went one game each.
Yeah, alternate.
Yeah,
They alternated games. It was crazy. Well, one
It's a
thing
lot of travel.
Yeah. Well, it's easy travel, but it is.
Yeah.
But in 70, the Knicks won games 1 and 2. Baltimore won 3 and 4. The Knicks won 5. Baltimore won 6, and the Knicks won 7. In 71, same thing.
Wow.
The Knicks won the first 2. Baltimore won 3 and 4. Knicks win game 5. Baltimore wins game 6. We have game 7 at home. So same thing's going to happen. Doesn't happen.
What went wrong?
Jason, I'll let you handle this.
There's no full games of this series, which sucks.
Yeah, that really sucks. I think part of it is, I think the Bullets wanted it more.
Mm-hmm.
They needed it. I mean, they needed to beat this team, and they knew they were right there. And they played us even, if not even a little bit better. They were close in the games in New York. We weren't that close in Baltimore. They were really good. And
yes, they were.
And ironically, Gus Johnson missed the first 5 games of the series.
That's wow. What?
Yeah, it was John
Trezvant. He wasn't
Trezvant.
fully healthy in the Buck series. I know.
No, John Trezvant played big.
Yeah.
And Fred Mad Dog Carter, who was a pretty crazy, interesting player. He played great that series. He was kind of the X factor.
Yes, he did.
That dude was a baller. I mean, he you talk about a guy diving on the floor. He was a great athlete. I think they wanted it more. I think the Knicks kind of assumed that they would win, at home after you won a title. And I think they were not complacent, but I think that they thought, oh, we'll pull it out. And they almost did. It came down to the last shot. It was a very close game. Earl had a good game. And then it came down to a 2-point game, and the Knicks had the ball. And they ran a play for Clyde, and the Bullets snuffed it out. They knew what was coming. And Unseld jumped, and this is how good Unseld was. Unseld jumped out on Clyde, stopped him, and then Clyde passed it to Bill Bradley with a couple seconds left. And Bradley looked like he was open, right? But Unseld had already moved over. Unseld, being an unbelievably smart player that he was, jumped out on Clyde, but as soon as Clyde made the pass, Unseld went with it. And Bradley only had time to catch it and shoot. He caught it, shot, and Unseld got it. He tipped it, game. So,
wow.
I can tell you this. I went back and read a couple articles an hour or two ago about it, and they said that the Garden crowd was insane the first half, and that the Bullets kind of got taken out by the crowd a little bit. They were a little skittish, and the crowd was just nuts, screaming defense and going crazy. And at halftime, they talked in the locker room and said, look, enough of this. We've been through this before. Screw the crowd. Let's shut them up. Let's go out and do our thing, start the third quarter strong, shut the crowd up, and make it happen. And they did. And you got to give these guys unbelievable credit.
Absolutely.
And remember
Gus
that
Johnson was hurt.
He was. It was John Trezvant. I'll tell you something real quick. Earl Monroe said it in the locker room. And even though there were injuries going into the Milwaukee series, the championship series, and I still think Milwaukee wins. Milwaukee was a juggernaut. He said
they were probably relieved, right, when the Bullets won?
Oh, totally.
What's that?
Yeah. I said they were probably relieved when the Bullets won.
They were. They say they wanted the Knicks, but they didn't want that smoke. But Earl Monroe, it's the truth. Earl Monroe said it in his autobiography. He said, we felt like that was our championship, beating the Knicks. So it was kind of a letdown going in. But what you were saying about Milwaukee, they've said it for years. We wanted them. We wanted to get them back, and we had Oscar. No, you didn't, because you know what? You might not have gotten Oscar a ring.
Yeah.
It was styles make fights, like he said.
Willis had a tough statistical series in that Bullets series. Any context on that?
Yeah, he was hurt. He was hurt a lot. He was really hurt. He had a really bad knee, and he had a sprained shoulder. He took a bunch of shots again, throughout the series, and he was banged up. He only averaged like 13 a game.
That's what I'm saying. Because in the season, he looks like insanely good. Like you're gonna have seen the episode. It's gonna be he's really good in the season.
Again, I said this at the beginning. Injuries were a big deal in the NBA then because you just didn't get over stuff. And Willis got banged up towards the end of the year. and he just had to fight through the playoffs. He played through it, not going to take games off. He got shot up. And I think the only really good game he played, big game, was Game 7. He played well. But he struggled for most of the series. And, I mean, when he's struggling, the Knicks are going to struggle because he's the key.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. And especially against Unseld and Gus Johnson, you got two of the strongest guys in the whole league there. You need Willis alongside DeBusschere to battle them, and he was gimpy. So that's part of it, but that's part of the game.
Let me ask you this before we end it off with the Monroe trade. Do you think, just like Clyde, if Clyde was healthy in the 69 Celtics series, do you think if Willis was healthy, fully healthy, and playing like his regular season self from that season, that the Knicks win and go back to the finals and play Milwaukee?
I do. I'll admit I'm a Knicks fan, but yeah, I mean, I think we were the better team, not by much. I mean, just by an inch.
I think were.
I think if he's healthy, we win that series. I think we definitely beat Milwaukee because, again, it's a style thing. We were made.
Yeah. Agree, 150%.
That would have been so epic to watch them play in a full series with Oscar. That would have been so epic.
And that's Clyde against Oscar. I mean, that's what we needed to see right there, because that's
Willis and Kareem.
Prime Clyde, young prime Clyde coming up with the title, and then the old champion Oscar looking to get his first title. That's what that would have been unbelievable. But you can want it, but it doesn't happen. So I mean, the Knicks, the Knicks could have had. I mean, I always look at it this way. You look back, they could have won 5 in a row,
easily,
and they were lucky to get 2.
Yeah,
it's hard to win.
Willis's injuries definitely contributed. This was the last good season, really superstar season we got out of Willis, which sucks.
That's right. Because he was so banged up, it just
Fabian,
you just didn't get over it.
No, maybe Dr. Hawk can speak to. This is 71, and they beat the Knicks in the Garden, right? Game 7.
Yep. Yeah. So let's finish it off. The craziest thing happens in this offseason of 71.
Unbelievable.
The guy that spearheads the Bullets, the man himself, Earl Monroe, gets. So how did that even happen? Why do you want to leave? I need some context on all this, because he just made the finals. He has a great team. What do you guys? Let me know. Yeah, Doc. Why did he want out?
Contract, man. Money. Cash rules everything around me. Money.
The Bullets didn't want to pay him. They didn't want to pay their franchise player.
They had talked. They had been going back and forth. I think his agent was Larry Fleischer, and Larry Fleischer always did the right thing. I'm gonna give you something. To chew on here. He trusted Larry Fleischer so much, and he knew that Larry Fleischer would give him the right deal, that when he went to New York, he drove up to New York from Philly in his Rolls Royce. He didn't know how much money the contract was going to be worth. So the initial contract with the Knicks was $300,000 for 2 years, so $150 a year. He didn't know that. He just knew Larry was going to take care of me. And of course, I think we've discussed before, he also considered the ABA. With Indiana, until he loved the guys, he loved Slick, but then he knew about the KKK history and the brothers. After one game when he went to see him play, everybody had guns at the top of their locker. He said, "Get me the hell up out of here." But he did also admit that, in his opinion, at that time, he still thought of the NBA as the more competitive league. But after he looked around and met Roger Brown and guys like that, he said, "I can do this." But back to back to Baltimore and him going up to New York, it was the money. But initially, he was very the enemy. How the hell do I go over and play with the enemy? And then with the press coming in, well, how you gonna play with 2 balls on the court? That's Clyde's ball and this, that, and the other. And he had a conversation with a guy named Sonny Hill. Sonny Hill ran the Baker League. That was Earl's summer league, which was tantamount to the Rucker. And he said, basically, Sonny asked him man to man. He said, "How are you going to do this?" He said, "You're Black Jesus. You're Earl Monroe." He said, "You ain't going to pull that in New York." He said, "Are you going to be able to deal with it?" And he said to Sonny, he said, "I'm a basketball player." He said, "I believe in the science of the game and I can make it work." This is Earl, quote from Earl. At that point, Sonny says, "I think you're ready to go to New York." And the rest is history. And I think when he went to New York, still a little skittish and apprehensive, having a panic attack on the way into the hotel. When he gets in the locker room, nobody says a word. And then DeBusschere comes over and breaks the ice. And then after that, the rest is history.
Wow. So my question is, what did the Knicks have that was enticing to the Bullets to send him there?
I think it was the contractual issue.
Yeah, it was not much. I mean, I think we said Mike
Would they get Reardon and
Mike Reardon and Dave Stallworth?
And money.
And money. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to remember in those days, and again, for context for people, in those days, prior to the ABA, prior to the existence of the ABA, so up until 67, you took what they gave you. That's how contracts were done. You get $15,000 and you say, okay, thank you. You have a good year, you go in and the guy says, all right, we're going to give you 18. That's it. There was no agents. There was very little negotiating.
Did the Bullets think that they were handing the Knicks a title?
You know, again, money is such a big thing. They were a struggling franchise and they really couldn't afford Earl. Earl deserved more than he had on his contract, and the ABA was in existence. So now you had an option for the players finally to get paid what they deserved. And so Earl used the ABA as leverage, which a lot of guys did. And Baltimore made him an offer that I think he felt was insulting and not near what he could get. And I think, like Doc said, his agent told him, oh, yeah, we can do way better than that. So if you're willing to leave, you got to be willing to leave. Willing to leave. Yeah, we went to the finals, you know, but if you're willing to leave, yeah, you can get way more money than that. And Earl, like most athletes, like, look, pay me what I deserve. I'm a top 8 player in the league. I need to be paid that way. And he was. And I got to tell you, as a Knicks fan, that was an unbelievably controversial trade because Earl was considered a one-on-one player.
Yes.
And he was. Now, I did read one of the articles. The Knicks, at the end of the 71 Game 7, in the locker room, were saying that they thought the reason the Bullets beat them is because Earl started passing the ball. They said the reason they beat us this series is Earl used to be like, you know, he's going to shoot. Now he beat one guy and he'd pass, and he became a much more difficult player to deal with. But the image was he's a one-on-one guy. And so the idea of him with the ultimate team where, you know, share the ball, find the open man, that was the whole Knick thing, was like, what are they doing? And it didn't work the first year. It did not work.
But they still made it to the finals, right?
But they had a great team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to make it really far. And Earl got exposed in the finals by Gail Goodrich.
He did.
Because Earl was still trying to figure it out. You got to remember, this is taking a guy who's a superstar scorer, and now he's got to fit in and figure it out and pass the ball, and only gets 12 shots a game, not 25. And it's a whole different ball game. And to his credit, and I really didn't think he would do it. I admit, as a kid, I thought, no. He turned it around, figured it out, and he took it to Goodrich in 73.
Yes, he did.
Was he frustrated in 72 like that season?
Very frustrated.
Yeah.
Okay. I was about to say.
Very frustrated. And the Knicks fans were frustrated with him. He was frustrated with him. He and Clyde apparently had no problems, ever. And I give both of them a lot of credit for that. They were good. But, you know, he had to figure it out, and it took a year. But then they got it done in 73, which is awesome. So
this is a little different than the Walt Bellamy, Willis Reed conflict. Not conflict, but the two guys that seem to be playing the same position, right? Because now you've won already. You're a championship contender every year. And now we have to make a decision because this means championship or not. Not we're just a floundering expansion team at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks, I mean, they went for it. Barnett was older. That was part of it. But it was a risky move, and it was risky for Earl. That was one of the biggest trades in NBA history.
No doubt.
It was, and especially these teams having played 3 years in a row against each other. We couldn't believe.
I couldn't believe it when I heard it.
Well, we're like, Earl Monroe's on the Knicks. What? Earl Monroe's the enemy, man. That's the guy we've had to beat for 3 years. That's the guy Clyde has to play and try, and he still beats Clyde. And he's the only guy Clyde can't guard. It was like, that's Earl Monroe, man. How's he going to be on the Knicks? It was crazy.
Earl stated publicly that the only guy the guy that he was most relieved, even beyond Clyde, he didn't expect to have an issue with Clyde. The guy that he was most relieved accepted him right away was Dick Barnett. He said because Dick was getting older, but Earl actually told Holtzman, hey, I'm okay with coming off the bench at first. He said, because I'm sore, I can't have another operation. Holtzman told him, hey, we need you out there because Reed's already hurt. And he said, okay. He said, play me slowly at first. But he thought that Barnett might have an issue, and Barnett did not, at least to where it got out in the press. And he said, him and Dean Meminger, they were tight, the best of friends from the beginning. Dean was new, And so it worked out pretty well.
So was Earl? You said Earl was injured when he first came to New York.
Earl was already had knee problems, and
he's been having those knee arthritis since like his rookie year, right?
Yeah, he had bone spurs as well on his feet, and that's what he told Red Holtzman. I need a little ease me into this. He said because I don't want to have surgery.
Makes sense.
This sounds like if Kyrie Irving joined the Golden State Warriors like 5 years ago, or if CP3 went to the Golden State Warriors a couple years back. He's at the guard position, more like Kyrie Irving because he's a one-on-one player. Can he mix with this team?
Can you mix? Yeah.
Wow.
Kyrie's an interesting comp for Earl. Like unstoppable one-on-one player with the best handle in the league. That was Earl, and that was Kyrie, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, they're an interesting, not in any other way, but in that way.
No, right.
They're a very interesting comp. But it was Earl was that was just crazy. You can't imagine how nuts that was that he came to the Knicks. I mean, he was enemy number one.
No doubt.
We'll see how it all plays out as the timeline continues. But I want to thank you guys so much for all the knowledge that was spit today. This was amazing. I hope you guys made it to the end of the video that are still watching. If you are, that means you really love the NBA and you love its history. So I appreciate you guys. Let them know, everybody. Let them know where they can find you on Twitter, social media, because these guys talk to me in the Twitter Spaces all the time. So start with Fabian, and I'll go to Jason, and then end it with Doc.
Well, Fabian PerspecTV, you can always catch me on Dime Dropper's channel.
Jason?
It's Jason Levin 18 on Twitter. Where you can catch me. And it was a pleasure to do this.
Appreciate it.
I thank Dime for, and I've told him this before, but you're the kind of guys we need, both of you guys. We need, younger people who love the game, but also want to see where the game came from and how the game evolved. I look at the game as evolving. It's all Gus Johnson. We talked about, he was like part of the game evolving. He was the LeBron physically of his time. There had never been anybody like him. After him, kind of George McGinnis was the next guy, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit better with the ball. The game evolves, and it's helpful and more interesting to know where it came from.
Definitely.
So you can put guys in context and say, wow, okay, so this guy's like that guy, and that guy's like that guy. And that's the first ball handler was Earl Monroe, okay, and first Cousy, then Monroe, then you go from there and you kind of go up the ladder, and now you got Steph and Kyrie, and it makes more sense. So, so I thank you for putting this together and having me and Doc do it. We have fun, and this was great. It brings back some unbelievable memories because boy, that's what got me going in basketball was having this. Really, was this rivalry because
when the Knicks were feared.
Yeah. I mean, what a drought, right?
Jason, soon come. Don't let this guy talk like that. He's very excited about this Clippers team. He still has to get healthy, Jason.
But, again, we talked about injuries this whole hour, right? Injuries are so important. The Clippers' whole season is about injuries.
It is.
I mean,
Doc?
Yeah, I'm on
the Baltimore side. I love it.
Yeah, man. Hey, first and foremost, as Jason said, we appreciate this opportunity to speak, and always appreciative of the young dudes who, like yourself, man, you're growing. You and Fob, you know your stuff already, but it's nice that you want to know about this history of the game. It is important. I give much respect to the legends. And like I said, I look forward to doing stuff like this. My schedule's hectic. Like I said, I'm in the car right now most of the time. Sometimes when I'm in surgery, when I finish the end of the day, sometimes I'm able to get on and talk with you guys. But anytime I can get on, I'm willing to do that. I can be on social media. I'm on at MD Hawk. I think it's on the screen on Twitter. That's about the only thing I do as far as social media, and that's enough for me. I am getting ready to drop a piece within the next week and a half or so on Oscar Robertson. Speaking of the old school guys, and it brings in the significance of how important he is to the game today. It's not just about stats. When I write any article, I'm not going to sit there and write anything about, well, so-and-so averaged 25 a game, and that's why you should love him. Usually I'm writing about somebody who has some social significance, and he certainly did more than what people understand. So
did he ever?
Appreciate you guys so much. Appreciate you guys so much. Yeah.
I like to toot my own horn, but I also like to give props to people. I'm not no disrespect to any one of us here, but Dr. Hawk said I get out of surgery sometimes and just talk basketball on Twitter Spaces, just rattling off. That was crazy. I was just holding a knife 5 minutes ago, but I got time to talk about Michael Jordan for a couple seconds.
Yeah. Anyway,
he doesn't hold the knife. He's not a knife
No,
guy.
I put folks to sleep, man. Yeah.
Oh, right. You just
He's
he's
like a great fighter. He knocks guys out.
He's a
Knock
jabber.
him out. Gotta wake him up though.
I appreciate everybody. Make sure you guys let me know what you thought of the video and everything. Make sure to comment on it and like it, and let us know what you thought. Appreciate everybody, and have a great day.
All right, take care, fellas. Talk soon.
Take care, everybody.
Definitely.